Hi everyone, so today we're going to make some cards using Simon Says Stamps December 2018 Holiday Cheer card kit. And the first card we're going to make, we're going to do a whole bunch of stamping, and we're going to use 4 different Simon Says Stamp inks to stamp the snowflakes that are included in the kit. And I picked these 4 colors because I thought that they fit in well with the palette for the rest of the kit. So the kit has lots of reds and teals and greens and some craft or brown. So I thought that if we made a scene using snowflakes that we stamped with inks in those colors, that would be kind of cool instead of just, doing a traditional like white snowflake. So we're gonna start. I cut this panel down to, I think it's 3 3¾ by 5, so that there'll be like a nice border when we finally put this onto a card base. And I started with the largest snowflakes, and I used the green leaf ink, and then I moved on to the lipstick red ink and stamped one of the mid-sized snowflakes, and then moved on to Lake Shore, which is the teal color, and then finally the dark chocolate, and stamped the smallest snowflake that we see so far. And I'm just arranging them in kind of like an L shape, and I'm just going around and around, overlapping snowflakes here and there, just until I have a design that looks kind of pleasant to me. And I'm there. So now I am going to stamp a sentiment from the kit onto the card panel. And this is the one that says Sending Christmas Cheer. I'm using Simon Says Stamp embossing ink to do that, clear embossing ink. And then I have some Wow red embossing powder, which I've been using a lot with my holiday cards. It's a really nice vibrant red. And I'm just gonna set that with my heat gun. And now we're going to move on to the candy cane. So the kit also has a candy cane die, and you get this cute little pair of candy canes. And I thought we could make a candy cane using the red cardstock that's included in the kit, and then I just backed it with some white cardstock. And then I'm going to poke out or add back in inlay die set, something like that. I'm going to put the little pieces that we cut out back into the candy cane. I can't remember the term for that, but that's what I did. I think you could have also just left the candy cane with the red cutout part without putting in the little pieces, but I just wanted to try that. So now I'm going to pop up the center panel on some foam tape and then attach it to the card base. And the card base I'm using is the teal ready-made cards that come in the kit. And then I'm just going to glue the little bow onto the candy cane with some multimedia matte adhesive, which is the glue that I just always, it's always closest to me and makes the least mess, I think. And then I'm just going to apply some of that to the back of the candy canes and attach them in the lower right-hand corner of the panel. I'm going to fill in the white parts of the candy cane with some white Blizzard Nuvo drops just to give the candy canes a little bit of sparkle. And then for the bow, I thought it looked, even though there's some embossed design in there so that you could see like the ripples in the bow, I thought that it looked a little bit bland, so I just dotted it with my white gel pen to make it a little bit interesting looking. And now I'm going to go back over everything with Nuvo drops in Caribbean blue, berry red, and then green. I don't remember what green that is, but whatever the dark green Nuvo drop is. And that is going to finish card number 1. For card number 2, we're going to do something similar except this time we're going to use craft cardstock. So I'm just using a similar pattern to what we had used last time, using the same inks, and we're just going to stamp some snowflakes in an L-shaped pattern again. But this time our focal image for the pattern for the card base, the card panel, is going to be different. And we're going to color it using some polychromos colored pencils, which I don't use that often, but whenever I do use them, I like them. So it's always on my list of things to do to like get them out more often. And then I don't. And then when I do, I wonder why I didn't do it sooner. Right, so many craft supplies, so little time. That's what I always say. Okay, so now, since we're going to be coloring in pencil, we're going to emboss the tree, which is a stamp in the kit, with white embossing powder. And I'm going to heat set that. And then we're going to color within the embossed lines. And then once we're done coloring, we're going to go and emboss the tree again, just because we're going to end up coloring on top of the embossed lines, and it's not going to look very neat unless we go back and do that step. So to color this, I left a little bit of a white highlight in the middle of the tree, and then I'm just going over all of the tree with my mid-tone color, which I think this is green leaf or leaf green in the polychromos family. And then my darker blue, my shadow blue, is pine green. And I'm just going to kind of shade the edges, leaving some like striations of color here and there that I did on purpose, just to see how it would look if we had some like just variated lines of color. And as you can see, it's getting really messy, but don't worry, because we're going to emboss it again. And then for the Christmas balls, we're going to use Nouveau drops for those so that they really stand out and pop. So I'm just going to color in the base of the tree with some browns, put a little highlight in there with a white. For the tree base, I wasn't sure what color I wanted to use. I went back and forth a couple of times and then finally decided on teal, just so that, you know, we're using the same colors that we stamped with. So there's some, I don't know, symmetry in the design. And then so here's where I'm re-embossing, and you're going to see how much better the lines look after you re-emboss after you've used your pencil over embossed lines. I'm just playing here. I probably won't ever do this again, but I just wanted to see if we could make it look like there's a little highlight around the tree. Maybe the tree was caught in a windstorm. Everything that I've done today has been like a windy scene. It's like kind of rainy and stormy in Chicago where I live. And I have to tell you, after all the snow, I've never been so happy for some rain. But it's windy, and I guess that was on my mind today. So like you're going to see wind in the last card as well. And then there are a few other cards that I'm not posting that will also have some wind in them. All right, so like I said, I added the Nouveau drops to the Christmas balls. That was Caribbean blue and berry red or glossberry, something like that. And then I'm using a sentiment from the kit. I use white embossing powder for the sentiment, and then a little strip of the red cardstock that I had left over from card number 1. And then I cut it down, and we're just going to apply that on top of some foam tape right underneath the Christmas tree. And that is card number 2. And then just to kind of brighten things up a little, I'm just going to add some white Nouveau drops here and there. And that is it, almost. Because I'm still adding away. And then we're going to put some glossy accents on the star to make it stand out a little bit. And then we're going to move on to card 3. So this card, I had a lot of fun making. So this one is going to be, it's called Windy Santa. And I wanted to make it look like he's standing in a windstorm. And I thought that the way his naughty or nice list is flowing, that it kind of looks like it's being blown by the wind. So then I thought it would be cool to combine it with the signpost and have the signpost kind of tilted so that it looks like it's being like blown around in the wind. So to get the effect of the wind in the sky, I am going to color in my nighttime sky with all my strokes going in a diagonal. And we're going to be careful to not blend the colors into each other so much, because we want those little streaks to show, because it's going to help us give the appearance that Santa is in the middle of a windstorm. And at the very end, we're going to add some objects in the windstorm as well, kind of blowing around, which is going to help to reinforce the idea that he's standing in the middle of a windy evening scene. So the colors I'm using here, I don't think any of them are the ones that I recommended in my Copic starter kit, funny enough, but they're ones that you've seen me use on this channel before. The sky is like B34, B37 for the dark blues, B72 and B75 for those like bluish greens that you see in some of the little strands of the wind. And then of course B10, which always ends up in my nighttime skies because it gives a nice glow. And I think that that's it. I think those are all the colors that I used in the night sky. And maybe a little bit of B32 as well. And I'm just trying to now, so I've got my wind going on a diagonal, but then we also need the land like right behind Santa to stand out as well, but it has to blend into the wind. So that's what I'm working on now, so that those little lines that are kind of like, that I'm drawing right now, that are coming up from the ground, which is, you know, just to give us the sense that there's some depth to the scene and some background behind Santa, because he's right like at the top of the North Pole, I guess. But we don't want to blend it so much that we lose those little diagonal stripes, because that's what's giving us the wind. So I'm just kind of like working little by little with my darkest shade, the B37, which is at the very base of the land, and then blending it from B34 to B32, which is the lightest. And just kind of going back and forth until I have my nice diagonal wind, and I feel that I don't see a lot of those little vertical lines popping up through the scene. And here I'm just working on the color. So I just want to make sure I have enough like blue-green patches and enough blue patches and enough light blue patches just to make the sky look interesting. So I'm just kind of playing there. I'm going over everything with the B75. And now I am taking my colorless blender and I'm like moving my hand in like a little bit of a whip shape, because that's going to help us to give the appearance of wind, and it's going to give the little snowflakes that we're going to put into the scene in a little bit, that we want to appear as if they're blowing around in the wind. It's going to give them a place to sit. So it's a very subtle effect, but as the ink dries, I think you'll see it a little bit better. So it just gives us these like light little wisps in the sky. For the background, Santa is standing on top of snow, but it's the night, so the snow is going to appear a little bit dark. So I'm making the ground with some cool grays and then also some B000, just to give the suggestion that it's really chilly and cold where he is. And now I'm peeling off the mask. This is Simon Says Stamp masking paper, which is really excellent and holds up very well to all of the like heavy Copic coloring that I do on my scenes. And don't worry, I forgot to take off part of the mask on Santa's list, but once I start coloring it, I will see it and then fix it. So one of the interesting things is that when I am coloring these on camera, it's actually kind of hard for me to see, and I don't move the paper around, which normally I do when I'm just like coloring on my own. So it's actually harder for me to kind of make the picture, because I'm kind of usually doing it at uncomfortable angles, and I can't always see what I'm doing because the lights from the camera are really bright. So, you know, we just do the best we can. So that's just something that I noticed that was interesting. It's actually the little pieces of Copic art that I do when I'm not on camera. Those tend to look better than the ones that I do here on camera, but hopefully you're still learning from watching me do these. So I'm just blending out my ground underneath Santa, and I was using, you know, just my different cool grays and some blues, making the front of the scene darker because that's going to be what he's standing on, and then just trying to give the appearance of some like bumpy snow hills in the background. So that's why the part that meets the sky is a little bit lighter than the foreground. For his hat, I used R14, R24, R29, and then R59, and maybe some R89 too. I don't remember, but we'll see if we see it on the marker cap as I'm coloring. And I'm just shading him in, just focusing on the outer edges. This is a nighttime sky, so all the colors are going to appear a little darker than usual. So like the reds are a darker red than I would use in a day scene. His skin, we're going to color in his skin with some dark skin tones. We're going to use E11, E13, and E15, which if it were a daytime scene, that would give the person you're drawing or the character you're drawing, it would look like they were suntanned, heavily suntanned. But in an evening picture, it just looks like your E00 and E11 would look in the daytime. So when you're doing night scenes, just try to remember to use darker skin tones. Okay, so now we are going to do Santa's beard, and I use some warm grays for this, and I'm going to start with some little flicks with W3, and then go to W5, and then go over everything with a W1. And I'm using the same approach that I use if I were doing hair on someone's head. I'm just trying to, you know, make different strands in different colors, leave a highlight in the middle, and just make things look interesting in general. And I'm happy with how his beard turned out. It looks very salt and pepper. I like it. For his hat, I am going to make the white fur, I'm going to shade it with a cool gray, just so that it stands out as a little bit different from his beard. His gloves and his pants, I used, I think, C7 and C9. And then for the little North Pole sign, we're going to use the same reds that we used in Santa's outfit. And then for the signpost, we're going to use some cool gray, not cool grays, cool browns in C41, 43, no, not C, E41, E43, E44, and then E47. And I start out with those by just covering the whole sign with the lightest color, the E41, and then I'm going to shade inwards from the outer edges with E44. And then I think at this point I'm going to take my E43 and then blend the E44 closer, you know, towards the middle so that it blends into the E43, leaving a little light highlight in the middle of the sign. We're going to add some lettering to the sign, so I wanted to make sure that the center of the sign stayed light enough so you could see the letters. And the letters, the sentiment that we're going to use, they're really, really small letters, so it's not going to work if you wanted to emboss them with a colored embossing powder. You wouldn't be able to make out the words. So you have to use in ink alone. And, you know, white ink doesn't show up very good, I don't think, especially against like a dark background for sentiments. So I just use my black VersaFine. And we'll see that in a little bit when I get there. For Santa's list, I decided to use some blue violets. So I'm using BV21 to fill in the entire list, and then we're going to shade in the spots that are like on the underneath side of the list with our darkest color, which is BV29, and then we're going to blend the darkest into the lightest with B25, our mid-tone. And I'm leaving the top of the list pretty light because that's the part that is going to be exposed to the light. So that's going to be the lightest. And the underside is going to be the part that is shaded and hidden from view. So it's going to be dark, but it's not going to be completely dark because, you know, nothing just appears to be one color, one flat color. There's always some variations in color. So we still end up using all three colors even on the underside, but just more of the darker colors on the underside. So for the sign, I wanted the edges to look even darker. So I'm just going over the edges with E49, and then I'm going to work my way backwards and blend all of the colors back in together. And this is where I stamp everything with a black VersaFine ink. And I do go over it with clear embossing powder and then heat set it just so that it stands out a little bit. And now we're going to stamp a bunch of snowflakes from the kit. These are the same snowflakes we used in cards 1 and 2. And we're going to stamp it with white embossing powder. And I stamp them in kind of like a diagonal fashion, just so they look like they're following the pattern of the wind, and the little snowflakes are caught up in the wind as well. So the only place we're going to see the snowflakes is going to be in the little wind stream that is surrounding Santa. And I'm going to fill that in with just some little white dots with my white gel pen. And I'm just making sure to keep them in a diagonal pattern so that this will also help to reinforce the idea that it's a windy night when you have a bunch of little objects being blown around in the wind stream. So there we have it. Now I'm going to take off my painter's tape, and I use the painter's tape because it helps me to stabilize the paper while I'm working on it, and it gives me clean edges along the side as well, and my marker doesn't drag on the edges of the paper when it's taped, which I like. And I'm just adding some more snow just to kind of fill in the little windstream pattern that we have going on. And I'm going to add a couple of highlights to Santa's hat, to the sides of his body, and then to the nice and naughty list as well. Hopefully this is the nice list. And I'm just kind of, you know, curving around some of the edges with some curved lines and then some dots here and there. I'm going to put a little highlight on the top of the North Pole sign. I'm going to add some white on top of the signs as well, just to make it look like there's, you know, a highlight, or maybe there's a little bit of snow that's kind of settled on the tops of the sign. Just give it a little hint of that. You don't have to do too much. Just a few little lines, a few little dots here and there on the edges of the signs. And that is it. So those are my 3 cards for this December kit. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that the video gives you some ideas for your own cards that you're making this holiday season. And I wish everyone a great weekend, and I will see you again in the next video. I would love to hear from you and hear which of the 3 cards you like best. And if you have any questions about any of the techniques in this video, please feel free to drop me a note in the comments, and I will do my best to get back to you. Thanks a lot, everyone.